Hey y'all, I have got to say, I never ever expected to get so many people up in arms solely because the way that I had thought that Wendi could possibly stop all the bleeding and finally wrap this up and even get a better deal for herself so that she wouldn't have to be looking over her shoulder for the rest of her life and she'd stop being a pariah and kind of have her family start to heal and everybody else especially. And I had thought that if she went to the Markells and apologized from her heart, gave the boys over to, the guardianship over to them, accepted a jail sentence for 5 to 7 years, that could be a way to move on. I in no way ever meant that I thought she was worthy of such a light sentence. And because I did think the only way she would ever come forward and take a deal is if it were like a 5 to 7 year sentence, that's something she might be able to handle. And I thought, well, if she does accept a light sentence of 5 to 7 years, then they would have to vacate the current sentences of everyone else and maybe give them 10 years and then maybe the shooter 15 years. And all the way around, I thought it might be able to work out. In no way, shape, or form did I think that she was not, that she shouldn't be prosecuted, that she shouldn't get a life without parole sentence. But I thought that this could be a good alternative if Georgia is at the point where she's not going to go for it, so to speak, because after Donna is prosecuted and hopefully gets a guilty verdict, maybe something will come out in that trial that they could use against Wendi. And Lord knows there is so much out there, but really, when you break down every single piece of evidence and every single lie, it first of all is probably going to be like the longest trial because there's so much. And then what's going to happen is the jury will probably hang and maybe hang again. And who knows? I mean, I was just suggesting that this is something that could wrap things up finally. I really had no idea that everybody would think that. I'm trying to say, oh, she should just get off, That is so far removed from what I think. And to be perfectly honest, I have never been so caught up in a case because most of the times I've been watching trials for 30 years, but most of the time after a conviction, it's over and there is no one else to go after. It just kind of ends, but this doesn't ever seem to be ending. And I know that, if she were to get a deal like that, it could kind of be ending. But then I got so many comments, and some of the comments that I got really kind of changed my mind, even though I still felt that this could be turned around. I started to realize with some of the comments, especially the ones about Wendi's children, that if she were to admit her part in this, she would probably, lose her parental rights. And I never thought about that. And I do not in a million years think she would go for that because she identifies herself as this amazing mother. So if she were to lose her children, what the hell is she? I mean, what is she anyway? But, even to herself, I don't think she would ever take a deal that would admit guilt, having realized that by so many comments convincing me that she'd never do it. And the other thing that made me feel like, you know what, they just all need to go to jail forever, was I had listened at first to the jail call the day that Charlie got convicted and found guilty, and I was really struck and even kind of moved, and I didn't expect to be, listening to Donna's suffering and the sadness, and just in my mind, she would never recover. And this was even before she was arrested. I was thinking, oh my God, this woman, she's done, stick a fork in her. Let's do that. No, I was thinking that, she would just be in a ball on the floor every day for the rest of her life because her son is convicted of murder. And then I just had listened to the first call or two, and it made me feel so bad, and I just kind of thought, is there a way out of this? And that's when I came up with the idea that if Wendi were to come forward and, champion for her family and her children and the Markells and, all those people, that even though she is, probably the most guilty of everyone, regardless of her actual physical actions, she started all this, but for Wendi, there is no death of Dan Markel. I believe that anyway. And so I was like, well, maybe something could be done, because I was so moved by the whole thing. But after all these, comments I got or whatever, I just was tempted to listen a little bit more. So I'm listening yesterday, I think it was, to Mentor Lawyer, and he was playing a call, and I'm not sure it was him because I listened to a couple, but he was playing a call from Charlie in jail, and it was before Donna was arrested. But it was, like 3 or 4 days after the conviction, and Bree was on the phone with him. And then he was like, he was on the phone with his mother, and he was like, let me hang up because I got to call Bree. And the mom was like, okay. And they hang up, and then he talks to Bree, and then he calls his mom back. And Donna is like, hey, Charlie, and did you talk to Bree? And they sounded so normal. I mean, they sounded like they did in those days when he was driving to Fort Lauderdale every day, and they're just in the car and they're just talking. And I was just struck by what phonies they are, and that maybe some of that emotion wasn't even real. And if it was real, it was just so temporary, because they don't really have a core or a soul where they can feel things as deeply as we all do, or non-mental, whatever's wrong with them. And so I just started to feel like, no, they deserve the worst of the worst, because they're never going to be sorry. They're never going to come to terms with what they did, and especially Wendi. I mean, I was watching her interview, and there were just so many things about it that struck me. But the biggest thing that struck me was when Isom said to her, right at the start of the interview, he goes, can I see some identification? And she hands him her license, and he's writing it down, ADE. And he goes, you never kept your maiden name? I mean, you never took the Markel name? And for all her blabbermouthing in that entire interview, where she never shuts up, the only one word answer that she gave was to that, when he asked her and said, you never took the Markel married name? And she said no. Didn't even elaborate. And I found that kind of bizarre too, because I know there are some women out there that, hyphenate, but this was like 10, 12 years ago, and I don't think people were just not changing their married name. I just found that like really weird, in addition to everything else. But so I just wanted to share that. I hope that, you understand, just because I hate to be misconstrued. That's why I talk so much, trying to make so sure that every nuance of what I'm saying is understood. And also because, I rarely even make videos anymore. But this one, had moved me. I used to participate in chats and things like that. And then one day I went into somewhere, and it come up on my feed that they should have, well, you know what? I'm not even going to mention this because it was about guns. And all I can say is I made the most innocuous agreement with someone that had said something. And it oh my God, I was so, for months, I kept getting all these nasty messages, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to comment anymore. The internet has gotten really, really hateful. That was like 10 years ago, and honestly, I really don't try not to comment, only if I have something good to say. And I didn't think that what I was contributing was, controversial, but obviously it was. But I'm back where I belong. I think, just like all y'all, she really needs to go down for the count. There's really no coming back from this. So she gets what she gets. And I'm hoping, like everybody else, that, as soon as after the new year, that something happens. Oh, and that's another thing I just want to say. The reason why I thought that maybe, just maybe, this would be a really good solution is, I don't know about all of y'all, but if she is not punished and just walks away scot-free, and then Donna dies, Harvey dies, and now she inherits another $5 million, and she's just living her life. I mean, some people say, oh, she's so, torn up over this, and she may not show it, but she's looking over her shoulder and going to be for the rest of her life, and soon she's going to lose her boys because they're going to find out what a horrible person she really is. And yeah, I hope that's true, but again, no guarantee of that either. So I just would hate to see justice not served in any way, shape, or form. So that's why I had thought that might work, but clearly it will not. Anyway, just wanted to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thanks, y'all. Bye.